Hello, dear friends. My name is Dr. Gauresh Palekar, and today I would like to talk to you about a disease called as avascular necrosis. Now, if you are interested and if you are watching this video, I can assume probably that either somebody close to you or you yourself are suffering from this disease. I'm very sorry to hear that and to know that if you are. But there is a lot of information which is not available to the general public, and this video is basically my contribution to basically make the general public aware about what this disease is, how this disease can be treated, and what are the options available for people who are having this avascular necrosis. Now, first regarding myself, I am an orthopedic surgeon. I have been in practice for more than 20 years, and I am based in Mumbai. Now, I did my MBBS and my postgraduates, that is Masters in Surgery, Orthopedics, from Mumbai itself, and subsequently I traveled to the US, where I worked in the very prestigious Johns Hopkins University. In John Hopkins University, I was exposed to excellent teacher in the form of David S. Hungerford, and David S. Hungerford has got a lot of contributions to orthopedics, and one of his major contributions is in the field of avascular necrosis. So I have been exposed to avascular necrosis for a long time, and since coming back to India, I had an opportunity of developing a new theory for this disease and how to treat it. This is a treatment method that I'm going to talk to you today about, which was first done by me in India and in the world. And the technique how this is executed is also originated from myself. So first is that what is avascular necrosis? Avascular necrosis is basically a disease whereby the head of the femur, that is our hip ball, uh, is becomes dead. Uh, Now, avascular, the term avascular means that this death of the head of the ball is because of lack of blood supply. Uh, in the 1960s, how this term originated is there were two doctors, two French doctors, Ficart and Arlet, and they started evaluating patients with hip pain. Now you have to remember that this was an era that X-ray was there was no CT scan, there was no MRI, and there were very few other modalities of diagnosis. When they tried to evaluate the X-rays, they found that a particular type of pattern on the X-ray was visible, and within a few months the hip joint just vanished, or it collapsed and led to arthritis. What they did was, as it was a standard at that period of time, is that they tried to do a biopsy. They took a biopsy or a small piece of bone from the center of the hip joint. How they did it was that they made a small cut on the outside of the thigh of the femur or the hip thigh bone, and they made a drill hole into the femoral head. They took a piece of bone. Now two things happened because of this. One is when they saw this piece of bone, they found that the bone cells inside were dead, and they named this as a disease wise, they named it as a avascular necrosis, because they thought that this was because of lack of blood supply to the femoral head or to the head of the femur. Second thing that they noticed was that when they did the biopsy of such people, the people had a significant amount of pain relief. This procedure, they named it as forage. Okay, so this happened in the late 60s and the early 70s. Dr. David S. Hungerford, who I previously mentioned, he was at that point of time studying in Paris, and he came to know about this procedure of Ficart and Arlet. And when he came back to the United States, and that was in the 80s, he started doing this procedure. He named it as a procedure called as co-decompression. So despite Ficat and Arle was the one who first did the procedure, the naming of this procedure as core decompression was by David S. Hungerford. Stop. 3, 2, 1. So this is how the term avascular necrosis originated. Initially in the 1980s, in the 1990s, recurrent biopsy, or when the bone was seen under microscope, they found that the dead part of bone did not have any blood supply, and that is why they thought that the death of bone tissue or the bone cells which happened was because of lack of blood supply, and there were various theories which were said to be because which cause a lack of blood supply. Now, as we know that there are various organs of ours which can suffer from this lack of blood supply, notably the heart and the brain, where in the heart it is known as a heart attack and in the brain it is known as a stroke. Now you are aware that in both these conditions there are nothing like this happens in the femoral head. There is no acute event or an event as in sudden onset of pain and something like that. It doesn't happen in the femoral head. So whether this dead cells are because of lack of blood supply has not been very clearly demonstrated by anyone. However, there are some diseases in which actually the lack of blood supply can cause AVN, and these diseases are in this way. So if somebody develops a dislocation of the hip, or there was a rare disease called as Tyson's disease, where there is a lack of where the artery gets blocked to the femoral head, that leads to lack of blood supply in the femoral head, and subsequently it is an acute event where the patient develops a sudden onset pain in the femoral head. But in most of the cases of avascular necrosis, this acute event is not there. So whether this avascular necrosis is because of lack of blood supply, there is no clear evidence about this as of now. However, we have to now look at what are the actual causes of AVN. So avascular necrosis can be caused in a majority of patients for no good reason, or at least I would say that our current level of technology is not good enough to understand in a majority of patients why AVN happens. However, in people who take steroids and are susceptible to steroids, these are the patients who may develop avascular necrosis. Similarly, people who continuously have large amount of alcohol, these are the people who can develop avascular necrosis. Other things are some diseases like sickle cell crisis, where again there is a lack of blood supply, that can cause avascular necrosis. But idiopathic, steroid induced and alcoholic AVN, there is no clear reason why the femoral head cells die. Now as we move ahead in the evolution of this disease, around the year 2000, where the cellular biology of the femoral bone cells and newer technologies became available to us doctors, what happened was that people started looking at the cells. Now they found that in people who develop AVN, they have got a very less capacity to regenerate cells. So for example, there are certain cells in our body known as stem cells. These stem cells are responsible for regeneration of the dead cells. So if there is a cell death in anywhere in the body, the stem cells from the blood pool would go there and it would change into that type of cell and replace that cell. Now people with avascular necrosis have got a little less amount of these kind of stem cells, and these stem cells are responsible for the normal wear and tear and repair of the normal wear and tear in our body. So it was thought that the primary cause of this kind of avascular necrosis can be because of the poor regenerative capacity or repeated injury to these cells or bone cells, which causes their death, and these patients do not have a good mechanism of repairing themselves, causing avascular necrosis or bone death. Now to reflect this change, internationally it is not called as avascular necrosis anymore. However, it is called as osteonecrosis internationally. However, because in India we continue to call it AVN, I am going to continue to talk about it as AVN rather than osteonecrosis. Now, second is that evolution of treatment of the disease. Now, we've seen how the disease originated or how it was found out and what happened, and now how the evolution of treatment of the disease has happened over the last 4 decades. Now, as I said, in 1960 Fickat and Arle, and in 1980 David S. Hungerford, what they did was they did co-decompression. Co-decompression per se used to give a lot of pain relief to patients, and like I said, there was no other option for the patients because the only other options available for the patient at that point of time is hip replacement or a total hip replacement. As of now also, there are no clear medicines for this disease. Right now the only treatment which is offered for most of the patients is to wait till the hip becomes so bad that they undergo a total hip replacement. So in case today also a lot of patients who go to doctors, they would be offered a hip replacement right off if there is a significant involvement of the femoral head today. Now, as time went and as in the year 2000 onward, as the role of these stem cells and the role of these bone cells became clear, and as the role of various other cytokines, or cytokines are those substances created by our body which help to increase the blood supply, they help to increase the some particular type of cells, and these are the ones which help in a regenerative capacity. Since the role of cytokines and these other factors became prominent because of excellent research by doctors Hosier, Valery Ganji, since then what has happened is that this new theory of avascular necrosis has come in. So what is the current line of treatment for AVN? As I said, co-decompression per se is not a valid option anymore because co-decompression has got varying success rate. In some people it may succeed and in some people it will not succeed at all. But it is a very good tool. Nowadays we use it as a way of accessing the area or the dead necrotic bone, how to get entry into that bone. This is how we use it. Since 2000 onward, I say that there are 3 generations of these orthobiological agents which are available, and all 3 generations are available in India as of now. First, or generation 1, is non-treated bone marrow. Non-treated bone marrow means what? The patient's bone marrow is aspirated or is taken out, and without any treatment this is injected after a co-decompression into the femoral head. Like I told you that the bone marrow contains stem cells as well as some other factors which are responsible for growth of these factors, and these factors would stimulate bone growth in this dead bone area. So that is the first generation of orthobiological treatment for avascular necrosis. Then we come to the second generation of orthobiological treatment. This is a method which is known as BMAC. BMAC, the full form is bone marrow aspiration centrifuge. What it does is that bone marrow, as you know, aspiration as in taking out the bone marrow, and centrifuge is that this bone marrow is then put in a very high speed centrifuge in a very special machine. This is done inside the operation theatre only, and the bone marrow, the constituents are separated. Those constituents which are mononuclear cells as well as the layer above that which contains these cytokines, this is separated during the BMAC and this is injected inside. The advantage of this procedure is that it has got a higher concentration of these mesenchymal stem cells as well as cytokines, and that is the reason why this is known as a second generation treatment. The bone marrow, however, we are not able to quantify how much cells we are injecting because there is no way of quantifying the cells. Whether the aspiration has been successful, not successful, we do not know because this bone marrow is not seen in a microscope or anything, and it is just centrifuged and it is injected. So the disadvantage of BMAC procedure is that there is no quantification of cells, and second is the bone marrow is a liquid form, so it has to be taken and injected very gently. Because it's a liquid form, it will flow out and a large amount of this bone marrow will be lost during the injection procedure itself. So this is therefore known as the second generation orthobiological treatment for osteonecrosis. And now we come to the procedure that I do, which is known as a cultured osteoblast injection. Now, what are these cultured osteoblast injection, and how is it better than the normal treatment? As I told you, the biggest disadvantage of BMAC is that we do not know the number of cells we are injecting. In this cultured osteoblast, we are aware that we are injecting around 50 million cells. So we know for definite sure that we are injecting 50 million cells. And second is what type of cells we are injecting. We are injecting what are known as osteoblasts. Now osteoblasts are the only bone forming cells in the body. There are no other bone forming cells. So when we are injecting BMAC, we are injecting what are known as pluripotent stem cells, which we hope that they will get converted into osteoblasts and produce bone. But in osteoblastic treatment, we are injecting the cultured osteoblasts, which are the type of cells that we want inside the bone. Second advantage of this is that what we are injecting is in form of a liquid, but as soon as we inject, it gets converted into a jelly, which helps to sustain these osteoblasts. In addition to that, it prevents the backflow and loss of these cells, very expensive cells I might add, and that is the reason why we get a definite amount of cells and a definite delivery system for this thing. The disadvantage of the third generation is that the patient has to wait. So there are actually two processes. First process is where the bone marrow is aspirated and it is sent to the laboratory, and in the second process, this bone marrow is then injected via surgery, and there is a gap of around 3 to 4 weeks for the patient between these two surgeries, and that's the reason this is the biggest disadvantage of Osgrow treatment. So now we discuss about who requires treatment for avascular necrosis or AVN. Now not everyone diagnosed with avascular necrosis actually requires treatment. There are very specific guidelines of who requires treatment and who does not require treatment. And what we should be looking at whenever we look at a patient of avascular necrosis, one part is a clinical examination, second part is the X-ray, and third part is an MRI. Now all three are important. Lot of time people or patient get surprised when I ask for X-rays and they are showing me the MRI, but X-ray is also very equally important to understand the whole spectrum of the disease, as well as looking at the patient is important, that is the clinical examination. Now like I said, who requires treatment of avascular necrosis? Now we have to understand that the people who require treatment are those people who are at a high risk of collapse. When I say collapse, in that case what it means is that the AVN is likely to progress to a hip arthritis and they are likely to require a hip replacement. Now not all cases of AVN will have got a chance of progression to hip arthritis and will require a hip total hip replacement. However, in those patients who have got more than 30% involvement of the femoral head, so for example, this is a thing which is done on the MRI, and whenever you get an MRI, I think you should ask your radiologist to calculate the amount of femoral head involvement. So most of the time, if there is a 30% involvement of the femoral head, those are the people who are likely, that is 1/3 of the femoral head is involved, likely to require treatment. Other area is that if this avascular necrosis involves the weight bearing zone. Why the weight bearing zone? It is very simple, because whenever there is a bone death and the patient's the patient continues to walk, what happens is that the femoral head will eventually fracture. Once it fractures, it happens in the weight bearing zone, and this fracture is typically seen on an X-ray as well as an MRI, and this is known as a crescentric sign. Now if this fracture develops, then the fate of the femoral head is sealed and eventually the patient will require a total hip replacement. As of now, post collapse or post even a mildest fracture, there is good chance that the patient will eventually require a hip replacement, because what has happened is that the wear and tear of the hip will have increased. So in ideal conditions, if there is an involvement of the weight bearing zone of the femoral head, then the people would likely to require treatment. The third criteria after the percentage involvement of femoral head and the weight bearing zone of the femoral head is the amount of fracture or the amount of weight bearing zone which is totally involved on the X-ray and the MRI. Now if this area is more than 240 degrees, okay, then again the patient is at a high risk. Finally, if the patient has already developed a small fracture, as we know as Fickett and Arley grade 2A, or in the newer classification Fickett and Arley grade 3, then the chances of that fracture progressing further causing hip arthritis are much higher. So these are the various reasons why the patient will develop, or these are the patients who actually require treatment. Okay, so what do we do during the surgery? What we do during surgery is we create, it is a proper surgery in which a small cut is taken. A small hole of 8 mm is made on the outside of the thigh bone, and through this hole we enter into the femoral head. Once we enter into the femoral head, I look at the amount of dead bone which is there inside the femoral head, and I try to take out bone from inside the femoral head to create space for these cells. In addition to that, whenever I remove this dead bone, it helps the new bone which is forming to grow there. Now what happens is that as the new bone formation happens, these cells will increase and multiply and gradually replace the dead cells. As we all of us know that as multiplying cells secrete a lot of other substances which help in recruitment of other cells into that area, and then this is a cascade which forms and resulting in a healing of this dead bone. Now during surgery what I do is that I do what is known as forage or curating out of the femoral head. How much bone I curate is a matter of experience, because if I curate too much bone, there is always a risk that the femoral head will fracture, and if I curate very less bone, then it will take a much longer time for the patient to heal, or it may not heal also. Now the questions that and after I did do that, the osteoblastic cells are then injected into the femoral head. The patient is put in that position, slightly tilted position, for around 10 to 15 minutes till the osteoblastic cells are fixed and the surgery is over. The surgery lasts for around 1 to 1.5 hours. In the immediate post-op period, what is done is that the patient is asked to walk with a walker. The reason why we do that is basically because there is a small hole on the outside of the femur, and there is always a risk that the patient may develop a fracture. Now this is a very theoretical thing, because in so many patients that I have done, none of them have actually developed a fracture, but I feel that it helps the new bone which is formed to recover. Also the patient's bone recovery is improved, and since the patient is at home, he is able to do good physiotherapy and maintain the mobility of the hip.